Friday year 11. We are looking today at the impact of population on host and origin countries, and we're looking at socio-economic and environmental impacts of changing population. So what we're going to do is be able to identify those different impacts and then explain them on the host and origin country. So that's what we're going to be looking at today in today's video. Second thing, we're going back to the syllabus. We're looking at that last dot point about economic, environmental and social impact. So let's have a look. So first we're going to look at the origin country. We're going to look at the impacts on the origin country. Now origin is where immigrants come from. So if you're in the origin country and you're losing lots of people to migration, you're going to have a loss of young adult labour force. Generally, what happens is young males from families migrate to other countries for better work opportunities, and as a result, the origin country loses young adults. As a result, a lot of these origin countries are normally developing countries, and there's a big reliance on farming. So if you're having lots of young people move, there is going to be a decline in the amount of people farming, and you might have lots of land abandoned, which isn't going to help your development if you're a poor country. A good thing though is that people who do migrate normally repatriate their money back to the origin countries. So what happens? Someone will migrate and then they'll send their money back home. That's good because obviously the origin country gets their money back. Lots of workers with skills. So basically that origin country is seeing its younger workforce leave. They might be pretty skilled, and that's a big loss, particularly if you're a developing country. You'll have fewer doctors, nurses, teachers, that type of thing. Now what also will happen, another positive, is you might have a reduced underemployment. So that's the people who don't have the skills. They might obviously leave. And then you have returning migrants bring new skills back to the country. So migrants might move back and they're really skilled and they bring those skills back to the origin country. Let's have a look at the social effects on origin country. Now social effects, that's to do with people. What happens? We have reduced population density as birth rate falls as young migrants leave, which is really good for developing nations. Family structures can break down, so people are dotted around the world. We might have an imbalanced population structure. We might have more elderly and women left behind as more young males move to get work. Money sent home can fund new education and health facilities, so that's a really good positive thing. And then marriage rates fall because people are leaving to go other places and they want more time in a career than to get married. Okay, now we're going to look at the destination country. So that's the country that they move to. I'm going to look at the economic effects. Remember, that's to do with money. So what happens in a destination country where there's lots of migration? There's an overdependence on migrant labour in some countries. So for example, we might see that in the construction industry in Australia. We might see a heavy dependency on migrant labour. There's a growth in ethnic retailing and areas associated with ethnic food outlets. So in Manchester in England, we have the Curry Mile, where there's a big chain, lots of different curry shops there, and you have it in Sydney in Chinatown, where you have lots of Chinese sort of businesses in one area. Migrants take up less desirable jobs. That's pretty good for obviously the destination country. Cost of educating migrants' children might be increased because they've got to learn different languages, different cultures, that type of thing. Host country gains skilled labour at a low cost, so there's not that money trying to train these people up. The social effects on a destination country. So we might have pressures on resources like health and education to help increase population. Entrenchments of attitudes that may result in fundamentalism. So what you might have is a bit of racism because we've got all these migrants coming in. You might be like, oh, they're taking our job. That's what that means. Not very nice. It does happen around the world. So that's a real negative. Dominance of males is reinforced, particularly if they've been sent to migrate to go and get more money. They might have the money. So if they've got their wives back in the back in the original country, the host country, then that's not going to be good. Sorry, the origin country, that might not be very good. So yeah, that can be an issue. Segregate groups of similar ethnic groups. So you might have certain areas where you have that certain type of migrant, which can lead to issues as well. Creation of multi-ethnic society increases understanding of ethnic groups. That's a good thing for that destination country. And there's some great examples in Australia of that. Influx of new and or revitalisation of local services, Turkish baths, corner shops, that type of thing. Because there's people might not want that apart from migrants, so that's really important. And then you've got aspects of cultural identity loss, especially among second generation immigrants. So when people have moved from a host destination, like say people have come from India, when their children, when they get to Australia, they might not have much cultural link back to India. So that's what he means by that. And then obviously discrimination against ethnic minorities might lead to civil unrest and extremism, and we're obviously seeing that at the moment with the BLM protests as well. So that's really important. So that's the social impacts. Now, before we go for implications for destination, government, country, I just want to talk about environmental impacts. Obviously, environmental impacts can be both positive and negative. If we go back to the host nation, the origin nation, the environmental impacts might be positive, reduced population, so the environment might bounce back. In the destination country, it might be slightly worse because we've got increased urbanisation and loss of sort of greenbelt areas, that type of thing. All right, so when we talk about environmental impacts, they're not as heavy as like the social and economic impacts. Okay, now the implications for destination country government, they get higher tax revenue if immigrants are working, so that's really good. Higher benefits payments, constraint on public services, high skilled labour to fill vacant roles and take away jobs from others, can boost the economy if migrants create businesses. So for a destination country to really improve those economic impacts, we've got to look at those implications, because when we've got lots of people coming in, working, we have to manage it right, so we can obviously the destination country can benefit as much as it can, as well as not exploiting those new migrants as well. Now the origin countries, obviously there's less constraint on public services, so that's good, particularly if it's a developing country. Less benefits being paid as well. However, the dependency ratio increases. So if we've got a couple, say in India, and the dad moves to Australia, the wife's left on her own with say 3 kids. So that's the dependency ratio, and that can be pretty bad if the husband loses his job or doesn't send money back home. It can have a big impact. So that's what the dependency ratio increases. GDP could go down producing this. So GDP is gross domestic product. That's how much money a country makes in a year. So if you've got less people working in your country, your GDP goes down, which means how much wealth your country has, basically. So that could go down if a lot of your workforce is migrating away. And then reduction in unemployment, but could rise if businesses fail. So that's another big issue. So that's all the impacts that we've got. We've looked at social, and economic and environmental. I hope that helps with understanding the impacts of migration. There's a lot of information there as well, and I'm hoping that the next set of slides will help you with your information. So make sure you've written down your Cornell notes, and if you've got any questions, let me know. You're doing a great job. Thanks, Year 11. You're a legend. Thanks. Bye.